All right, so on the topic of pentupling ores, which is 5 times, I'm over here in my creative test world. It's actually the same seed as our normal world. But I wanted to kind of go over a little bit about how all of this stuff works. We have a 5 times ore set up here. Now, some of these are creative tanks. We're going to have to do some stuff to, get these things in there. But for right now, this is good enough to kind of demonstrate here a little bit. The sulfuric acid is going to be one that's going to be kind of tough to get, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But the first off, so I'm going to grab some iron ore here real quick, just to kind of give a example of how all of this stuff works. So on the first one here, we're going to set this to, none of these are going to auto eject. First one here is the smelter. This is exactly what it sounds like. We just take this and it smelts iron ore down into iron ingots. So this is just a 1-for-1. I get a 1 ore for 1 iron ingot. No big deal. So if I want to double my ores, I can actually use an enrichment chamber. And I take one of the ores here, and then we are going to enrich this. And this is going to turn it into 2 iron dust. So basically we have just doubled this. We can take our 2 iron dust, put it over here into this, and then we will get 2 iron ingots out of this. And there we go. So we have 2 iron ingots out of that one. So mind you, I'm starting with a 64 thing of iron ore here, and we're going to go through a couple different ones. So the first one we get 1, second one we got 2. So the third way, we can actually triple our ores. And in order to triple our ores, we actually have to start over here at our purification chamber. Now for this one, we need oxygen, which I've just used flint for right now, because flint will give us oxygen. And I can take 1 ore here, and we'll put it into this system, and we'll let it purify it down. Okay, so 1 purification gave us 3 iron clumps. We have to take these iron clumps, and then we have to crush them next. So we're going to crush them here in the crusher. And once they're crushed, we now have 3 dirty iron dust. And we can take those iron dust and enrich them so that we can get the actual regular clean iron dust. And there we go. Now this will just work its way through all 3 of those iron dusts. And then we are going to take these 3 iron dusts and put them into the smelter, and we will get 3 iron ingots. And there we are. We have our 3 iron ingots. So to do 3, it required 4 of these machines to be able to do it. We had to purify, crush, enrich, and then smelt. So to get more than 3, we have to go one more step to 4, which is our chemical injection chamber. This one requires hydrogen chloride, which we can use salt from the world for right now. There are ways of generating these gases with other machines behind it and stuff like that, and then injecting the gas in. For right now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take our 1 ore, put it in the chemical injection chamber, and it is going to use up all of our salt here. We'll have to put some more salt in. As you can see, it's very hungry for salt. All right, so now we have got 4 iron shards, and a whole bunch of salt was used there, so that's not a very effective way to do that. So then we take our 4 iron shards, put them into our purification chamber, and it is going to chew up that flint like crazy, so we're going to have to keep resupplying that. And so in the meantime, we just put a creative oxygen tank back there, which has infinite oxygen gas, and we can at least watch this thing process everything down. Now, I am running out of power here, so I may have to change some stuff with my power upgrades here. But this will give us a quick example of how we can take, 1 iron ore, put it through our chemical injection chamber, and then turn it into 4, which takes it over here and turns it into 4 iron clumps. And there we go. So now we have our 4 iron clumps. I'm going to take our 4 iron clumps, put it into our crusher. And then we have 4 dirty iron dust. We'll take the 4 dirty iron dust and enrich those 4, and then we're going to smelt those 4 down as well. So there is how we can get 4 times the amount of ores. And then we have our 4 iron dust, and that 4 iron dust turns into 4 iron ingots. Now, so we've gone through 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the highest we can get with all of this system is 5. So 5, we start over here on our chemical dissolution chamber. We need sulfuric acid to do this, and we'll take our ore and it turns it into a slurry. The dirty iron slurry then gets turned over here into the chemical washer and is going to be washed into clean iron slurry. And after the clean iron slurry, it's going to go here into the chemical crystallizer. The chemical crystallizer will then take it and make 5 iron crystals out of it. We take our 5 iron crystals, we put those into our chemical injection chamber. Our chemical injection chamber will turn all 5 of those crystals into 5 shards. And of course, the process, again, just repeats on down through here. We take our shards, make our clumps, we crush those clumps, we enrich those clumps, and then we smelt those clumps. Yeah, so that's the way we can get up to 5 times our ore processing right here in Vault Hunters. So yeah, just to give a quick example, that got us 5 out of a single iron ore. So here's our iron dust. We'll take this 5 iron ingots. All right, so here is your brain-hurting explanation of how to pentuple ores in survival here in Vault Hunters. So, since we have cooking for blockheads, we can do a couple different things. Obviously, we need some chemicals here. In our purification chamber, we need oxygen, we need hydrogen chloride, we need water, and we need sulfuric acid. To make each of these, we start off with a thermal evaporation block. We have to fill this with water. Of course, this has to be built in a very specific way. It's the only way this thing will actually work, so you have to be careful on how you actually build this. I built this one pretty tall, so it'll do a lot. But first of all, we have water that gets sucked in and put into a thermal evaporation valve. And inside here, we have water, which gets, obviously you can see it's been filled up. Over on the side here, we have resistive heaters. These use a ton of power, so obviously I have a ton of power coming to them. On the output side, we use another thermal evaporation valve. We use an advanced mechanical pipe, and we pull out of that into a advanced fluid tank. You don't have to use a tank. I like to use a tank just to have a little extra buffer in this system. After this, our advanced mechanical pipe runs back over and into our first electrolytic separator. This electrolytic separator is going to take our brine and is going to make sodium and chlorine. The sodium, we are going to dump the excess of. We don't actually need the sodium. The chlorine, however, is going to be ejected into a chemical infuser. We take the chlorine, and then we need hydrogen. Now, we've done this one before. We take a water source, which is a sink in this case, and then we separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen. We're going to dump any excess hydrogen and dump any excess oxygen because it will make a ton of it. Because we are going to be needing both of these, we're going to leave these both at idle and let this build back up. So this is the first thing. Now, we have oxygen that comes out of here. So we're going to take our oxygen and run it directly to our purification chamber. As you see, we have oxygen in here, so that one's done. Now, this one here needs hydrogen chloride. So that's why we need to take our brine and separate it into sodium and chlorine. The chlorine and the hydrogen get put directly into this one here, chlorine and hydrogen, and it outputs hydrogen chloride. The hydrogen chloride flows out directly into our chemical injection chamber. Now, that is all you need to be able to I believe 4 times your ores here. And if you want to go farther and get the whole 5, the pentupling here, we need sulfuric acid, which is this whole section over here on the side. So to make sulfuric acid, we need both hydrogen chloride and we need oxygen. So the first thing is the hydrogen chloride gets flown over here into another chemical injection chamber. In this chemical injection chamber, we are going to take gunpowder, put gunpowder in it. I'm going to hook this up to a gunpowder farm so it flows into it all the time. This makes sulfur dust. Sulfur dust is then put into a chemical oxidizer, which turns it into sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide is then going to flow into another chemical infuser. Here is where that other oxygen line went. We are going to take oxygen and sulfur dioxide to make sulfur trioxide. Sulfur trioxide is then exported to a chemical infuser where we have sulfur trioxide and water vapor to make sulfuric acid. Water vapor is made with a rotary condensator, or whatever this thing says. I can't really read it very well. We take water, another solid water source, and we just condense it, or whatever it says, into water vapor, which is what we see here, sulfur trioxide, water vapor, and it makes sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is then output directly into the dissolution chamber, which is where we can make our first step of the pentupling of our ores. So as you see, this thing is absolutely massive, all kinds of stuff. The biggest problem that we have here is energy usage. Each of these machines uses a ton of energy. Some use 8, that one uses 32, another 32, this one here uses 32, this one here uses 64. So as you can see, it gets really out of hand really fast with a lot of this stuff. So all this energy usage is just insane. Now, obviously, in this creative world, I am cheating and using energy cells that are creative energy cells that create unlimited power. But of course, you can always use things like advanced solar generators and everything else. So this is all of the stuff you need to be able to pentuple your ores. This is insane, a huge investment. And of course, you can't, pentuple your gems. You can only pentuple things that are like vanilla blocks. So for example, you can take your iron, you can take your gold, and you can do all of that and pentuple all of it down the line. We'll take one of them here, put them in the system. This is using all kinds of stuff we did before. We have our iron slurry. We have our crystallizer, we go into our injection chamber, and then we go to our purification chamber, our crusher, our enrichment chamber, and finally our smelter to make up a ton of iron ore. So there you have it. That is the quick and dirty on how to make a survival or pentupling setup here in Vault Hunters, or just the regular mechanism mod.